Is the Reverend point blank? But from what I understand, Reverend, you are not actually a Christian yourself. Is that right?
Well, I used to be until I found out how dismal and confused and Hippocratic the whole system was. And, I can tell you exactly how it happened, but I do not. First of all, let me just give a heads up to you, Dan. I appreciate your patience. You have a lot of patience, and my patience doesn't run that thin. And Courtney, I definitely appreciate your experience, and I can feel your power, the energy that comes from you, and I feel like you are committed to your work. And saying that, as you are as well, Dan, and saying that brings me to the point that most of these people have no idea when the fact of the matter is laying right there. You're saying truth wanted. I'm saying truth is needed. And that is the bottom line to the whole structure of what life is. Now, I had to ask the spirit of God, because it's a spirit. Now, Courtney, you have a spirit. I can feel it. Dan, you have a spirit. And Karen just gave us a tutorial about the tarot cards. I appreciate that. But she didn't really tell us anything that was relevant, basically, to me. Now, maybe it was relevant to someone else. So my point is this. Just imagine it. I get off the train when I'm in London, and I step off the train, and I'm looking at this plant. And the plant is beautiful. And I'm not a botanist, but at 20 minutes, I'm looking at it. Now it's 70 degrees, and the sun is shining. And I automatically ask myself, I say, I wonder what kind of seed it comes from. And when I asked myself that, I was soaking wet. I walked across the street into the hotel, checked into my room. The guy, they was looking at me stupid. When I walked, my shoes were squishing. I don't know where the water came from. I have no idea to this day. But I went up to the room. I took off all my clothes. I sat down by the desk with the pen and the glass with the little thing, and I started writing. But I had my eyes closed. And I wrote. Halfway through what I had written, I knocked the glass off the table, and then I jumped up and had a spiritual orgasm.
Ooh.
Blew me away. So then I sat back down and I finished writing. Now, after I got done writing, I opened my eyes. I'll tell you what I wrote. I wrote, the best that life has to offer is right now, this minute. In a moment, it will be gone, never to return again. The second part I wrote was, your words and your deeds are your seeds. The hearts of people is the different ground. What's in their head is the weather. But you have to know what it is you want to grow in your life. And most people have no clue because they're following TV, they're following the news, they're following their family, following their church. And they spend 24 hours doing everything else, and they don't even spend an hour with themselves, taking an inventory. Who are you? Where are you going in life? What is your gift? I mean, I did a lot of comedy before.
Yeah, I just want to ask you real quick. When you're talking about this spiritual experience that you had, do you attribute that experience to some sort of higher power? Do you think there was a God kind of channeling that in you, or are you using spiritual in just a metaphorical sense?
No, I attribute that to my experience.
Okay, cool.
I attribute that to the things that I had seen. I've traveled to many countries, to the people that I've talked to, even not speaking that language, I was able to communicate with them because their spirit. I grew up in Cabrini Green in Chicago. I mean, my thing was, when I was there, I couldn't speak the language, so I had to feel their energy, the spirit of what they do, when they smile and how they smiled. But at the same time, somebody could come up to you and from the hood and say, hey, this, that, and the other, and they're saying one thing, but the spirit is meaning something different. They want to revive you.
So just to clarify just a little bit, because you're using this rich, religious language to describe these kinds of experiences, which I think is wonderful, but it can be a bit confusing if we're not being super specific. And when you're saying the spirit of this people, are you just talking about just their general outlook? Like you can just tell based on body language and stuff that something else is going on? Or do you think there's a soul, a spirit that's giving off an energy that you can read? Is there any specifics to this? Or
well, what it is this. I have a child in Africa. And he's a bushman. So I was in the bush in Kilimanjaro, Tanzania, and I didn't speak the language, but you know, when I woke, I married this girl, and I had a doctor flown in. Took another 45 days, came back. We all came back, and that night we spent together. I didn't bother her, but the next morning we sat at the table, and when I looked into her eyes and I put my hand out, she touched my hand. When I reached over to kiss her, she kissed me back. And it just led to that connection the whole time. Now, I don't know that there is a God, but I do know that if I plant apple seeds on the ground where the ground is good and the weather's right, I'm not going to get oranges. I'm not going to get bananas. I'm going to get apples. I know that if I plant lies, it's going to be a tree of it. That I know. I don't know who did it, but it keeps me alive.
So
it's the very essence of nature that keeps me alive. So
can I just ask you something real quick?
Sure.
I think that atheists can connect with what you're saying in terms of you sort of connected on a human level with the person that you were with, and sort of having an emotional closeness, and it can feel transcending, and it can be transcending from a secular context. But so you're talking about a connection you had with another person, and then you're talking about the certainty of the way that the laws of nature work, of the seed of one thing is going to grow that one thing, and it's predictable, and it's reliable. So I wasn't sure how those were connected.
Yeah, no, you're right about a few things, because the laws govern the earth, and I'm talking about the law of gravity, the law of nature. Those things govern the earth. Those things keep us alive. If it wasn't for the fruits and vegetables, the oxygen, and all those things, we wouldn't exist. So when we die, we go back, our flesh goes right back to the ground, and over thousands of years, somebody's going to be eating apples from us.
Right.
So I don't care how it works, but I know that that's how it works. And from whoever created it, I really don't care about that, because when they talk about Jesus, there's so many different things that are wrong, that don't make sense in the Bible, in all these different books. I'm not even bothered with that anymore. I'm gonna call my God truth.
You sound like a humanist. Have you ever encountered that term at all?
No, I don't. Well, I think I've heard it, but I didn't get into it because, again, this is the bottom line. The bottom line is, while you're out there going and doing, if you don't have a perspective, some knowledge about why you're on this planet, you're liable to fall into anything.
Yeah.
If you don't know why you were created based on taking an inventory of yourself, like a store, trying to find out what's selling and what ain't selling, if you don't know, haven't done that, then you will be subject to anything and everything. If you don't know why God made you, if you want to call him God, then you just being moved, how they say, tossed by the sea and the wind. I use the scripture because it's so messed up, Well,
and
so I have to use it so they understand it. Go ahead.
I would say you are kind of mixing a couple of things there, where if you don't have a sort of moral foundation or a set of values, then I guess we would probably agree that you're able to be, you're kind of susceptible to things in a negative way. But the concept of a higher power creating you for a purpose isn't necessarily, it's not completely necessary for everybody in order to have a set of values and something that guides their life and something that gives their life meaning. So if you don't have a purpose that is outside of you, that's basically being imposed on you in certain religious contexts, rather than, at least for me, secular humanism, I found was a better value system for me, and I think for the world, because rather than there being this sense of a creator having a black and white set of morals that gives you a set of guidelines that you don't have a reason for, you have a sense of good and bad, but they're kind of imposed on you, and you're not given a reason. It's sort of a because I said so kind of thing. Morality ends up being the result of crime and punishment, of like punishment versus reward, versus a secular humanism perspective of having a value in humanity for its own sake, not because we're children of a certain God, as opposed to others or no God, but also a set of moral guidelines that are based on the effect we have on each other, and again, acting moral because we all have to share this planet, and we're here for a short period of time. So at least for me, I really love secular humanism for the hope that the world is the way it is because we made it that way, good and bad, and we have not only the responsibility to make it better and to leave it better than we started it with,
Absolutely,
but also we have the power to do that because it's just us.
Yes, we do.
You know, and so that's been really exciting for me.
Let me say this to you. See, this is the fact of the matter. Death is guaranteed, life is not. But what is guaranteed is I don't know John F. Kennedy, I don't know Martin Luther King, I never met Malcolm X, I never met Harriet Tubman, but I know something about them because they left a legacy of who they were.
Right.
And if a person doesn't search that, they'll be a pawn in the whole scheme of things. So all these people who are claiming this and God that, and they have no idea because they haven't stopped to look inside themselves and say, who am I? I'm not saying that God, maybe we evolved from apes. I don't know that. I don't really care about that. But the fact is, I know what I see, I know what I'm capable of, and I know what sustains me. And I know that I have the ability to do whatever I want to, but I need to know what that is. Otherwise, I'm going to pay or get paid for my choices.
Man, see, we got a reverend on here that's not preaching Christianity. Sounds like he's preaching humanism.
Right.
Some people would say, Reverend, that what you have right now is the Holy Spirit talking through you, but
what do we do?
It's interesting, though, right?
Hey, Dan, that's another story. Because look, when I was in the church, they would start talking about, come by my house on a Honda. I'll see, and I would be like, wait a minute. Is there anybody going to tell me what this person just said? Now, I would have said this a whole different way, trust me, on stage. But I would, in this case, nobody's there interpreting that. In that Bible, their Bible clearly says whenever there's an unknown tongue speaking, there's an interpreter. But nobody ever says to do that. They be jumping up and down, their dresses all up, breasts hanging out. I mean, they got the Holy Spirit. I don't get that.
Yeah. So and Courtney does too. I think we both came from a Christian background.
Yes, mine wasn't the speaking in tongues variety.
Mine wasn't either, but
it is interesting. The idea of like churches having this ambiguity, this like speaking in tongues, so that you can sort of interpret it however you like to. And the previous call we had on tarot cards, it's kind of a similar idea where you're coming to a church for meaning, and you're also finding all of this really eccentric, exciting behavior of speaking in tongues, and you want to participate, so you're going to interpret whatever positive ideas come out of that, even though it's completely not based in any sort of message.
I have done my fair share of working in church as well. And when you set up worship services, you're caring about which songs you're going to play. You're going to care about the message and matching thematically at the night. You're going to care about the lights. You're going to care about every single thing that goes on. And there is, like you're kind of saying, a bit of a performance that goes on with these sometimes.
Because at the end, they want some money.
Yeah.
And here's the problem. Most of them want money, and there's 500 churches within 3 blocks, and they all got different names for God, and they all believe they got the right God. That should tell you there's a problem right there.
Yeah.
And the fact that he got 2 cars, he got 3 suits, his shoes are shining, your rent ain't paid.
Yeah.
That's a problem with that.
Yeah.
Because that Bible clearly says take no money for your journey.
Yeah, I'm not as cynical. I don't think that everybody wants it for money. I know I certainly didn't when I was, in the college ministry and stuff, but I think there definitely are some who do, and that's really unfortunate. And it's hard to tell the motivations of people when you get down to it,
Well, yeah, and I'm not sure I would be on board with the comment of people in churches aren't really thinking about their lives and basing their ideas on some sort of like logic that they've come to about why they think this is true. For me, I believed what it because I was indoctrinated in it, and it was the only thing I knew. But then once I started to value what was actually true versus what had meaning to me and what had tradition and comfort, that's when I kind of found my way to atheism. But that value system isn't the same for everybody. And so some people value their sense of tradition and family connection and these things more than whether it's true or not, or whether it compares to other religions.
Yes.
So it doesn't necessarily mean that they haven't really thought about what they believe or what a moral person they're going to be. But I would sort of fault religions for having a very skewed sense of morality and not giving it actual moral codes to people, rather than this sort of because I said so.
Yeah, for sure. This kind of
To put it plainly,
authoritarianism.
religion is a con game. It's just a con game.
Sometimes,
in my opinion. Now, I mean, there are people who go to church who mean well, and they want to do the right thing. But here's the preacher who takes their pain and takes their money and gives them all these falsities. I just don't. That can't be right. Knowing in my mind, knowing that he's going to have to pay for that because he planted that.
Well, remember what Karen was saying earlier. Karen really believed that she had powers when she was doing these tarot card readings. And I think people who are up there on stage, I mean, you probably know as yourself as someone who goes on stage, there is a certain power and authority that you feel when there is an audience in front of you. And that
confirmation bias of of people connect with what I'm saying, and I must be actually channeling the Holy Spirit. So there's a lot of people who actually believe what they're saying. And it makes them even more effective in that way.
Yeah, for sure. So
it makes them more ignorant too.
Yeah, well,
absolutely.
I mean, that's why we talk about these.
Yes.
I'm not as quick to judge people's motivations because it's
hard to see.
You can't tell just from meeting them in the like you can get vibes from people, but it's really hard to tell unless you're really in that person's head. But anyway, Reverend, this was an interesting conversation. Not where I thought it was going to go, but I do appreciate you calling.
Well, it's my pleasure. And again, I love the show. I've already subscribed to it. I think the people need to hear the truth.
Heck yeah.
And I believe you guys are setting up a platform where everybody can say what they want to say, period. Doesn't matter how you feel, and you will accommodate them. I'm just not that patient.
Yeah. It takes practice, man. I mean, I've been doing this show for just a little bit now, but I've heard a lot of interesting things on here, and sometimes you just want to be like, that's BS. But that's not really. I'm missing the point if I do that, right? If I'm the one, I always say that this is like the motto of the show. I'm not the one that's distributing the truth here. I'm the one who wants you to tell me what you think is true, and then we kind of talk about it a little bit. Because as soon as I'm the one that starts dictating what people should believe and how people should believe it, then suddenly I become kind of part of that problem too. So. It's a whole dynamic. But Reverend, thanks again for calling. I hope to hear from you again sometime.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Wonderful. And I certainly got that feeling from you when I was listening to you, listen to the things that were going on. So, Dan and Courtney, you guys really have a wonderful night. And I appreciate you having me on.
You too. Thanks again.
Yeah.
Wow. That was fun. I still don't know.